You know, there's a specific kind of weight to a piece of plastic when it has the power to fix every single mistake you think you've made in the last 5 years. I'm not talking about the physical weight though. This thing was metal, sleek, matte black, and cold against my sweaty palm. I'm talking about the gravitational pull of it. I was standing in the middle of the executive boardroom at Ether Dynamics, staring down at this limitless black card, while Adrian Sterling, our CEO, a man who usually looked at us like we were lines of code he hadn't quite debugged yet, leaned against his mahogany desk with his arms crossed and dropped a bomb that made the air in the room feel thin. You have 24 hours, he said, his voice that low, gravelly baritone that could silence a room of shareholders in 3 seconds. Flat, spend whatever you want. Buy a car, buy a diamond, book a flight to Paris. I don't care. No limits, no questions asked. Just bring me the receipts tomorrow night at dinner. Show me who you really are. It sounded like a dream, right? Like something out of a reality TV show or a twisted fairy tale. But standing there next to the other 3 candidates, I didn't feel lucky. I felt nauseous. See, I'm Elena. I'm 32. I'm a single mom to a 6-year-old boy named Leo who thinks peanut butter is a food group. And I'm Adrian's executive assistant. That means I know how he takes his coffee black to ice cubes. Don't ask, and I know his schedule better than he does. But I also know that my bank account was currently sitting at $42.12, and my car's transmission was making a sound that sounded suspiciously like a dying robot. I looked around at the other women standing there with me. There was Vanessa, the VP of marketing, who looked like she was carved out of marble and ambition, already tapping her perfectly manicured nails on the table, probably calculating how many Birkin bags she could fit in her trunk. Then there was Chloe, the PR genius, who was smiling like she'd just won the lottery, which technically she had. And Sam, our lead software engineer, who just looked confused, like she was trying to figure out the algorithm behind Adrian's generosity. And then there was me, the woman who had to use a safety pin to keep her blazer closed, because the button popped off this morning and I couldn't afford to get it dry cleaned. Why us? Sam asked, adjusting her glasses, asking the question we were all thinking. Adrian just smiled, and it wasn't his usual corporate shark smile. It was sadder, deeper, because I'm at a crossroads and I need to know who I can trust with the future, not just the present. Go. The clock starts now. Walking out of that building felt surreal, the Chicago wind cutting through my thin coat like a knife. While the other women were practically sprinting to their luxury cars, I heard Vanessa on the phone, making an appointment at the Porsche dealership before the elevator doors even closed. I got into my beat-up Honda Civic, prayed to whatever gods listened to single mothers that the engine would turn over, and just sat there gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. It was Mrs. Gable, the neighbor who watches Leo after school. The preview message hit me harder than the black card did. He's coughing again, Elena. It sounds deep. And he's warm. I think the fever is back. That text message sucked the air right out of my lungs. Leo had been sick on and off for months, lingering colds, a wheeze that rattled in his small chest and kept us both up at night. The clinic doctors kept dismissing it, saying it was just viral, just that time of year. But I knew in my gut something was wrong. But my insurance deductible was $5,000, and I hadn't even made a dent in it this year. I was choosing between rent and specialists, and rent was winning every single month. I looked at the black card sitting on the passenger seat. I could buy a new wardrobe. I could pay off my student loans. I could buy a house in the suburbs with a yard where Leo could run around without me worrying about traffic. I could buy a life. But then I heard that wheeze in my head, my son's breath hitching while he slept, and the decision made itself. It wasn't even a choice. I didn't go to the mall. I didn't go to the dealership. I put the car in gear and drove straight to the University Research Hospital, the one with the glass atrium and the specialists who don't take standard insurance, the ones who require a retainer just to say hello. I walked up to the front desk, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, and I slapped that black card on the counter. My son needs to see Dr. Reese, I told the receptionist, my voice shaking but loud. Today, now. I don't care what it costs, run the card. She looked at me, looked at my frayed coat, looked at the card, the platinum lettering catching the fluorescent light, and her whole demeanor changed. One moment, ma'am. 3 hours later, I was sitting in a private exam room with Leo, who was swinging his legs off the table and looking at me with big, feverish eyes. Mom, are we in trouble? Is this expensive? No, baby, I said, smoothing his sweaty hair back from his forehead. We're not in trouble. We're fixing it. The card worked. It worked like magic. It covered the consult, the rush lab work, the full respiratory panel that I'd been dreaming of getting him for 2 years, but could never afford. And when the doctor came back in, looking serious but optimistic, and told me that Leo had a severe, undiagnosed allergenic asthma that could be completely managed, with a specialized treatment plan and home air filtration, I didn't cry because I was sad. I cried because for the first time in his life, my son was going to breathe easy. We left the hospital with a bag full of medications that cost more than my rent, and I felt lighter than air, but I wasn't done. I had about 6 hours left on the clock. I took the car to the mechanic, not the cheap guy in the alley who patches things with duct tape, but the certified shop with the clean waiting room. Fix everything, I said to the guy behind the counter. The transmission, the brakes, the heat that only works on Tuesdays, make it safe. Then I went to the grocery store, not the discount bin. I bought fresh vegetables, organic fruit, the good vitamins, a winter coat for Leo that was actually waterproof, not just water resistant. I bought things that meant survival. I bought peace of mind. And then, with an hour left on the clock, I did the one thing that felt selfish, the one thing that was just for me, or rather, for the man who gave me this lifeline. I drove to a rare bookstore in the West Loop. Adrian rarely talked about his personal life, but I remembered once, late at night when we were prepping for a board meeting and the office was quiet, he mentioned his father, a man who died when Adrian was young, a man who wrote a book on philosophy that never sold more than 100 copies, but meant the world to him. I lost my copy in a fire years ago, he'd said, staring out the window at the city lights. I'd give anything to read his words again. It took 45 minutes of the bookseller making calls, but they found one, a first edition signed, sitting in a collector's estate in Ohio. I paid for overnight shipping. I paid a premium that made my stomach turn, but I bought it. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the pile of receipts. It wasn't glamorous. There were no diamonds, no plane tickets, no designer labels, just a fixed car, a healthy kid, a full fridge, and an old book. And I was terrified, because tomorrow night, I had to walk into Adrian Sterling's penthouse and show him that I used his fortune to buy normalcy. I had to show him that my biggest dream was just to survive. The next evening, the air in Adrian's penthouse was thick enough to chew. It was a stunning place, glass walls overlooking the skyline, but it felt cold, empty, like a museum where you couldn't touch anything. Vanessa was there first, of course, wearing a dress that probably cost 10 grand, holding a glass of champagne, like she was born with it. So, she smirked at me when I walked in wearing the same navy dress I'd worn to the office Christmas party 3 years ago. Did you enjoy your little shopping spree? Elena, I hope you bought something better than that. I did just fine, Vanessa, I said, gripping my purse strap tight to stop my hands from shaking. Chloe was bubbling over, talking about the trip to Bali she'd booked. Sam was quiet, looking smug about the high-tech server equipment she'd apparently ordered for research. Adrian walked in then. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was in a dark sweater and jeans, looking less like a titan of industry and more like a guy who was just tired. Ladies, he said, nodding to us, dinner is served. We ate, but nobody tasted the food. We were all just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Finally, Adrian pushed his plate away. Okay, he said, his blue eyes scanning the room, landing on each of us with a weight that made me want to hide under the table. Show me. Vanessa went first. She dumped a bag of jewelry on the table, watches, earrings, a necklace that blinded you if you looked at it directly. I invested in tangible assets, Adrian, she said smoothly. These will appreciate in value. It shows I understand long-term growth and stability. I'm thinking about the future of the company's image." Adrian nodded, his face unreadable. "Calculated. Impressive." Chloe showed off her travel itinerary. "Networking," she said. "I'm going to the most exclusive resorts to rub elbows with potential investors. I'm building bridges." "Charming," Adrian said. Sam showed receipts for top-tier coding hardware. "I'm upgrading our infrastructure, investing back into the work." "Dedication," Adrian murmured. And then he turned to me. "Elena." My hands were shaking as I pulled out my little envelope of receipts. I didn't have gold. I didn't have plane tickets. I laid them out on the glass table: the hospital bill, the mechanic's invoice, the grocery receipt. I fixed my car. I started, my voice trembling, "Because if I can't get to work, I can't help you run this company." And I took my son to a specialist. "He has asthma, Adrian, severe asthma, and I couldn't afford the inhalers until yesterday." I took a breath, fighting the tears that were stinging my eyes. "I bought groceries, real food, and I paid my rent for the year so I don't have to worry about eviction notices. While I'm scheduling your meetings." The room went dead silent. Vanessa let out a tiny, cruel scoff. "So," she whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear, "you paid your bills. How pedestrian." I ignored her. I reached into my bag and pulled out the small, brown paper package. "And I bought this," I said, sliding it across the table to him. "For you." Adrian looked at the package, then at me. He unwrapped it slowly. When he saw the cover, the faded blue linen, his father's name embossed in gold, he froze. His hand actually shook as he opened the cover and saw the signature. "Where did you find this?" he whispered, his voice rough. "A dealer in Ohio," I said. "You told me once it was the only thing you missed from your old life." I thought, well, if you're giving us a chance to show who we are, I wanted to show you that I listen. Adrian closed the book gently, his thumb tracing the spine. He didn't look at Vanessa. He didn't look at the others. He looked at me. And for the first time in 5 years, I saw the walls come down. "You used my money to save your son," he said softly, "and to give me back my father." "I did what I had to do," I said. "This experiment," Adrian said, standing up and walking to the window, looking out at the city lights, "wasn't about who could spend the most. It wasn't about who had the best taste. I'm starting a foundation, a new arm of other dynamics focused on families in crisis, healthcare, housing, stability. I need a director who understands what it's like to have nothing, so they know exactly how to give everything." He turned around. "Vanessa, you bought things. Chloe, you bought status. Sam, you bought tools. But Elena bought a life. She invested in people." Vanessa stood up, her face flushing red. "Are you serious?" "She's a secretary, Adrian. She used corporate funds to fix her Honda. That's embezzlement, not leadership. It was a test." "Vanessa," Adrian said, his voice turning cold, "and you just proved that you see money as a scorecard. Elena sees it as a lifeline. That's the difference." He looked at me. "I want you to run the foundation, Elena, with a salary that means you never have to worry about a mechanic again." I stood there, stunned, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. Adrian, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he smiled. But before I could answer, before the joy could even settle in, my phone rang, a sharp, piercing ringtone that cut through the moment like a knife. It was my neighbor again, Mrs. Gable Elena. She was screaming, her voice hysterical. "Elena, you need to come home. The police are here. Someone broken the apartment. Oh God, Elena." They tore it apart. They were looking for something. "Is Leo okay?" I screamed, dropping my purse, the room spinning around me. "He's terrified. He's crying, but he's safe," Mrs. Gable sobbed on the other end of the line. "But Elena, they took your laptop. They took your files. They wrecked everything. It looks like a tornado hit the place." I looked at Adrian, panic flooding my veins like ice water. "I have to go. My apartment. Someone broke in." "Leo is there." Adrian's face shifted instantly from benevolent boss to protective. "Lion." He didn't ask questions. He grabbed his keys off the counter. "I'm driving you." "Adrian, you can't." I said, "I'm driving you," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "And my security team is meeting us there." As we rushed out, leaving the other 3 women standing in the penthouse, I didn't notice the look on Vanessa's face. I didn't see the way she was furiously typing on her phone, a small, triumphant smirk playing on her lips. I didn't know it then, but the break-in wasn't random. It wasn't a burglar looking for a TV. It was the beginning of a war, and I was the target. We sped toward my neighborhood, Adrian's SUV tearing through the streets, and he reached over, covering my trembling hand with his. His hand was warm, steady. "We're going to fix this, Elena. Whoever did this, they made a mistake messing with my family." I looked at him, confused, my brain trying to process the word, "Your family." He didn't look at me, keeping his eyes on the road, his jaw set tight. "I'll explain later. Right now, we just need to get to Leo." And that's when I realized this wasn't just about a job anymore. This was personal. And as we pulled up to my building, seeing the flashing red and blue lights reflecting off the wet pavement, I knew my life had just changed forever, in ways the black card couldn't even begin to cover. The apartment was a disaster zone. It wasn't just ransacked, it was destroyed. Drawers pulled out, clothes slashed, the mattress overturned. It wasn't just a robbery, it was a violation. It was rage. But they hadn't taken the TV. They hadn't taken my jewelry box with the fake pearls. They had taken my work laptop, my filing cabinet with all of Adrian's schedules, and strangely, the empty envelope from the black card. "Why?" I whispered, holding a sobbing Leo in my arms, sitting on the ruined sofa. "Why would they do this?" Adrian was in the corner, talking to the lead detective and his head of security, a massive guy named Marcus. I saw Marcus hand Adrian a tablet. Adrian's face went pale, then red with fury. He walked over to me, kneeling down so he was eye level with Leo. "Hey buddy," he said, his voice impossibly gentle. "You like superheroes?" Leo nodded, sniffing, clutching his stuffed bear. "Well, my friend Marcus here is basically Batman. He's going to watch the door. Nobody is getting in." "Okay." Then he stood up and pulled me into the kitchen, away from Leo's ears. "It wasn't a random break-in," Adrian said, his voice low and dangerous. "Marcus traced the signal from a burner phone that was pinging near your building, right before the alarm tripped, and he found a digital trail on the dark web. Someone hired a cleaner to find dirt on you, to find anything that would disqualify you from the promotion." "Who?" I asked, though a cold knot was forming in my stomach. I think I already knew. "The payment was routed through a shell company," Adrian said, "but the IP address for the authorization, it came from inside my penthouse, tonight." My eyes widened. "Vanessa? She sent a text right after I offered you the job," Adrian said. "She wanted to frame you. She wanted to plant evidence that you were embezzling or selling corporate secrets. She thought if she destroyed your reputation, the job would default to her. She underestimated me. And she definitely underestimated you." I felt sick. "She did this to my son, for a job?" "She did it for power," Adrian corrected. "But she made a miscalculation. She didn't know that my security system logs every keystroke on the guest Wi-Fi." He pulled out his phone. "I'm firing her now, and the police are on their way to my penthouse to pick her up for conspiracy and breaking and entering." I leaned against the counter, the adrenaline crashing out of me, leaving me shaking. "I can't stay here, Adrian. The door is broken. Leo is terrified. I don't feel safe, I know." Adrian said, "You're not staying here. Pack a bag. You're coming to the estate." "I can't impose, Elena." He stopped me, his hands gripping my shoulders. "You bought my father back for me. You saved your son. You are the strongest person I know. Let me do this. Let me take care of you for once." And that's when he told me the rest. The part he hadn't said in the boardroom. "There's another reason I needed you for the foundation," he said, looking down at his hands. "My sister, Julianne, she died 3 years ago. Leukemia. She left behind a son, Noah. He's 7. I've been raising him, or trying to, but I'm drowning, Elena. I know how to make money, but I don't know how to heal a grieving child. I saw how you are with Leo. I saw what you prioritized today. I need you to help me run the foundation. Yes. But I also need you. I need your heart. For Noah. And maybe for me. We moved into the guest wing of his estate that night. It took a few weeks for the legal dust to settle. Vanessa was indicted. Turns out she'd been embezzling from her previous company too, so she had a lot of skeletons in her designer closet. But the real magic happened in the quiet moments. I watched Leo and Noah meet, two little boys who had seen too much sadness for their age. I watched them bond over Legos and Star Wars. I watched Adrian get on the floor and learn how to play. Really play, for the first time in years. I watched the ice around his heart melt every time he heard the boys laughing together in the backyard. 6 months later, I was sitting in the Foundation's new office, my office, reviewing a grant for a pediatric asthma clinic we were opening in the South Side. The phone rang. It was Adrian. "Hey," he said. "I'm in the lobby. I forgot my badge." "You own the building, Adrian," I laughed. "They know who you are." "I know," he said. "I just wanted an excuse to see you." "Come down." I walked down to the lobby. He was standing there, holding a coffee black to ice cubes and a hot chocolate. "For me." "So," he said, looking at me with that intensity that still made my knees weak. "I was thinking, the experiment is over. The job is yours. The bad guys are in jail. And he stepped closer, taking my hand in front of the entire security staff. "I realized I never actually took you on a proper date. One where you didn't have to buy your own way in. Is that a proposition, Mr. Sterling?" "It's a request." "Ms. Rossi, dinner?" "Tonight. I promise no tests. Just us." I looked at him. I thought about the black card, the fear, the break-in, the chaos. And then I thought about the way he read to Leo and Noah last night until they both fell asleep on his chest. I thought about how he'd given me a career, but more importantly, he'd given me a home deal. I said, "But I'm driving. My transmission is brand new, thanks to you." He laughed, and it was the best sound in the world. We walked out of the building together, into the sunlight. And let me tell you, having a black card with no limits is nice. It really is. It buys security. It buys health. It buys freedom. But finding someone who sees your worth when your bank account is empty, finding a partner who stands in front of the danger so you don't have to, finding a man who loves your son as much as he loves you, that's a wealth that no credit limit can touch. So, here's the thing: if you're out there, struggling, feeling like you're one paycheck away from disaster, just remember, your value isn't in your wallet. It's in your choices. It's in who you fight for. And sometimes, just when you think you're breaking, life hands you a lifeline. You just have to be brave enough to use it for the right things. What would you have done with the card? Would you have bought the car, the clothes, the trip to Paris, or would you have done what I did? Let me know in the comments. And hey, if you like this story, do me a favor, hit that like button. It costs $0, but it means the world to me. Until next time, keep fighting the good fight.